from the fly fishing shop in Wells, Oregon. I'm here to show you how to tie Mark's Marabou Spey Intruder. It's a very simple, easy to tie fly, and it's made out of marabou, flashabou, a tube, and a little bit of thread. Takes just a very short amount of time to tie, but it's deadly effective. I tie it in 3 different color combinations. This is red and orange. I tie it in black and blue, and I tie it in what we call sandy candy, which is pink and orange combination. And for this fly, you're going to need some Pro Flexi tubes. I use mine in red for this fly. You're going to need some orange or red thread. This is Vivus 10-aught. You're going to need some gold flashabou, and going to need some really good quality marabou in both red and orange. One of the essential materials for this fly is schalopin. Schalopin wound on the front of the fly is going to make it puff up in the current when it's wet. And I'll show you how to prepare all this different material. And this schalopin feather is part of the bird's back. It's the last saddle feathers before the feathers go up the tail. It's a very webby feather in the water. This is also going to be used as a hackle. We're going to go down here and take a look at the stem, and I'm going to strip this about here, and the reason being is that I'm going to wrap this from the bottom rather than from the tip. So we're going to blend this webby marabou looking stuff, into the marabou turkey feather. Now this Pro Flexi tube has a built-in hook holder built right into it. It's 40 millimeters of fine tube. It's sealed at the end. It was made in a die. It's all one piece. So I'm going to clip the front end of this off, and this exposes the hole in the end of the tube. And then it has, like a 40 millimeter hook holder here, which is way too long for what I want to use it for. So I'm going to clip that off right there. So we've got our flexi needle, installed in the vise. We've got our flexi tube installed on the needle, and it's secured. And we're going to tie all of this fly on about the front 3/8 of an inch of this tube, which is about that much right there. The marabou feathers are going to be tied in from the tip. So I'm going to wet my fingers, preen this marabou back, get most of this stuff out of the way. I want a good defined place to start my thread. So in actuality, this operation would be easier if I had a cup of water here to dip my fingers in, but I just stuck my fingers in my mouth. I'm going to anchor that marabou right there. I'm going to come back. I'm going to preen it back and start winding from the tip. And as you can see here, this thing here is in the way. So I'm going to break it off, get rid of it, okay? Now, we're not building something here to impress our buddies, when they look in our fly boxes of how great of fly tiers we are. This thing here is simply a fly to catch a steelhead with. And the main thing in this fly is wiggle, action, that makes it look alive, makes it attractive that way. It also makes it look vulnerable. It looks like it's struggling in the current, having a hard time, and there's nothing more attractive to a predator than something that is vulnerable, some prey species that's vulnerable. I'm going to snip that off of there, get rid of that, pull all this stuff back, get it streamlined, put a couple of wraps over the base of all that stuff. Now we've got a fairly dense patch of marabou. I'm going to take 3 strands of this Flashabou material, which is just a fine width mylar strand is all this is. Shiny, reflective, and has a lot of wiggle to it. Okay, there's 3 of them right there. I'm going to fold this over the top of my fly tying thread and set it right on top of that bunch of marabou that I've got there. I want to kind of divide this in half and tie it, so it kind of spreads out here a little bit, and kind of wiggles around inside of this marabou fly here. One more. Now, I'm going to take my red marabou feather. I'm going to go through the same process of dividing it from the tip, so I can tie it in from the tip. Okay, I'm going to tie that in right in front of the orange. Once again, we're not being real careful about how we do that because it's all going to be covered up anyway. Okay, pull all that back. Grab it by the stem, pull that back. Now we're not worried about whether we're getting things wrapped up in each other or anything here, because I'm going to take my pair of scissors and dig all this stuff out of there with the tip of the pair of scissors, tie that stem down. Okay, couple of turns just to get it tied. Now you can see this stem is pretty thick and pretty gnarly to work with, so we're going to get rid of that as soon as we can here. Okay, that end goes in the garbage. This end gets tied down to the tube. Okay, don't know how good a job I actually did of that. Plus I got a bunch of stems sticking out here. So I'm just going to take this fine thread, because I can use a lot of wraps here without building much bulk. I'm going to tie it down. Now, I've got my schlappan already prepared. This basically is going to do 2 things for me. It's going to cover up this mess that I've got on the tube, and it's going to build a hydrological dam in front of this marabou. What it's going to do, it's going to create what intruder tires would call a prop. But this is on the outside of the fly rather than on the inside. And whereas most props are made out of man-made materials that are pretty stiff, or short hairs that are pretty stiff, which don't collapse, when you're casting them. They create a lot of friction in the water when you're casting. These fibers here will collapse completely as you're casting. Okay, now I've got something wrapped there and something. There we go. I'm going to tie this thing off right here. I'm going to pull this back, and all of a sudden this thing is going to go from something that looks pretty crude to something that looks like a guy actually knew what he was doing when he tied it. Okay, so I'm about ready to finish this thing off, and this fly is going to hunt. You can fish this fly with confidence. Thanks for watching.